Welcome back to the Afro page. In today's video, we will be unveiling the leading African economy in agric productions. Agriculture is essential for the strong growth of every economy, and most importantly, it provides the first primary needs of man, which is food, a vital element for world livelihood. Agriculture is one of the essential sectors of the world economy, which is one of the highest revenue earners globally because it is one of the core industries that is rarely harmed by fluctuating demands. Thus, it is a good fact that a country that targets its projects towards modernizing agricultural productions and building of agro-allied industries is building a strong economy. Considering the fact that the total percentage of agricultural exports in Africa is decreasing in a rapid account, there are many factors that have created a huge barrier in mega productions and commercial agriculture in Africa. These factors are the land use system, lack of capitals, changing climate, lack of government support to farmers, and most importantly, killing and threats to farmers by the so-called Fulani herders in northern parts of Nigeria that puts lives of farmers in risk and have subsequently decreased the agricultural output rate in the country. Nevertheless, many African countries is working towards improving their agric sectors of their economies. In fact, there have been a visible progress on the increased production and a large increase in agric export products of most African nations in recent years. Agriculture contributes a large portion of most of the richest and upper income classified economies in Africa. With a huge workforce, a large amount of fertile land, and optimal conditions that might allow year-round production makes Africa the ideal region to begin your agricultural investment activities to realize significant returns. And we have done a careful research to bring out top 10 highest agric producing countries in Africa to help you make a quick and right decision on the countries to invest on agricultural industries. Let's begin with number 10, Cameroon. Cameroon is well known for its climatic, geographic, and ecological diversity. Abundant rainfall in most regions, which enables farmers to grow a very large number of crops. Agriculture remains the backbone of Cameroon's economy, employing 70% of its workforce while providing 42% of its GDP and 30% of its export revenue. Cameroon ranks fifth largest producer of cocoa and eighth in coffee production. Other top exports are palm oil, rubber, tea, sugar, variety of fruits, tubers, cereals, etc. In 2018, Cameroon produced 3.9 million tons of plantain, making it third largest producer in the world, only behind Congo and Ghana. 1.9 million tons of taro, making it third largest producer in the world, second only to Nigeria and China. 2.6 million tons of palm oil and 674,000 tons of yam, making it the seventh largest producer in the world, to mention but a few. Number 9. Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast is the largest economy in West Africa Economic and Monetary Union. This West African country has a population of 29.39 million and a strong GDP of 75.8 billion US dollars, boosted their economic growth through agriculture as its main source of growth. Ivory Coast is one of Africa's largest farms. More than 60% of the national territory is dedicated as arable agricultural land. Cocoa production is the blood pumping through the economic veins of the Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast is the world's #1 producer worldwide of cocoa. It is the global top exporter of raw cashew nuts, natural rubber, cola nuts, cocoa paste, golden cashews. These top 5 goods represent 72.5% of the total value for all Ivory Coast exports. The country produces other cash crops such as coffee, rubber, cotton, palm oils, and bananas. In 2020, Ivory Coast was ranked worldwide as the second largest producer of cashew nuts, the third largest producer of yam, just behind Nigeria and Ghana, and the first largest producer of rubber in the continent of Africa, and the fifth globally, behind Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, and India. Number 8. Mali. The economy of Mali is based to a large extent upon agriculture, with a mostly rural population engaged in subsistence agriculture. About 80% of the labor force is engaged in farming and fishing. Mali is among the poorest African countries with low-income economy. Most of the agricultural subsectors such as shea butter, mangoes, peanut, cashews, and biofuels remains largely unexploited and provides a unique opportunity for investors. Agriculture production in Mali is largely dominated by cotton and grains, including rice, corn, millet, sorghum, and wheat. The 19.14 billion US dollars total GDP of Mali, about 42% comes from Agric sector. The West African nation gives 400,000 bales of cotton annually. This makes them the sixth most producing cotton countries in Africa and 21st in the entire world in 2020. Mali has recorded its largest cotton production of more than 760,000 tons for the 2021-2022 season and is looking at direct exports of cotton to Indian textile industry. Mali is the second largest producer of shea nuts in the world after Nigeria, the third largest producer of camel milk, fonio, and okra globally. Forestry also makes a significant share in the exports. About $53.5 million of rough wood are exported. Number 7. Ethiopia. Ethiopia has great agricultural potentials because of its vast areas of fertile land, diverse climate, generally adequate rainfall, and large labor force. Agriculture is a key component of many other economic activities, such as marketing, processing, and exporting agricultural goods. It employs over 80% of the labor force and contributes about 50% of the GDP in Ethiopia. Despite the potential, however, Ethiopia agriculture has remained underdeveloped. Coffee remains the mainstay of the country's main export. Ethiopia has been growing coffee for centuries, and it is the birthplace of coffee Arabica. Today, Ethiopia is the first largest producer of coffee in Africa and fifth globally. Ethiopia grows high-valued oil seeds that are coveted around the world and are high in demand. The seeds produced in Ethiopia include sesame seeds, mustard, pumpkin, sunflower, rapeseed, castor seed, and granules. Oil seeds accounted for $446 million in exports for the year 2017. Ethiopia is also into horticulture and has been able to grow this agric sector to the quality of export demands today. Ethiopia is the second largest flour exporter in Africa. Grain production is one of the most important subsector in the country's agriculture-based economy. It accounts for nearly 80% of the land under cultivation and employs 60% of the rural workforce. The major grain crop grown in the country are teff, local small grain, wheat, barley, corn, sorghum, and millet. Ethiopia is known for growing a wide range of vegetables that includes green beans, snow peas, broccolis, asparagus, okra, cabbages, cauliflower, and eggplant, amongst others. Extensive irrigation and a vast workforce support vegetable growing. Vegetable exports brought in $538 million in 2017. Number 6. Ghana, the Gold Coast. With a population of over 13 million inhabitants, Ghana stunned economists as it recorded the fastest GDP growth rate since the COVID-19 pandemic. Outstanding feat, especially as Ghana doesn't seem to want to take its foot off the gas pedal. The Ghanaian agriculture sector employs about 54% of Ghana's total labor force. Agribusiness accounts for a small fraction of the gross domestic product. CNBC Africa estimates to stand at about 5.8% GDP, with cocoa, been a major contributor. Ghana is also working towards valorizing cocoa and cocoa products at home without necessarily having to export them. Big work is being done in the development of cocoa value chains in Ghana. This is a wonderful objective as it could lead to the development of African chocolate factories, brands and trademarks, something worthy of the Black Stars. Corn, plantains, rice, millet, sorghum, cassava, and yam are the principal crops that are harvested. The Ghanaian agriculture sector depends heavily on the crop sector, not the livestock, forestry, or fishing industries. According to the FAO, Ghana produced the following in 2018: 7.8 million tons of yam, making it the world's second largest producer, second only to Nigeria. 4.1 million tons of plantain, making it the world's largest producer, just behind Cameroon. 947,000 tons of cocoa, making her the world's second largest producer, behind only the Ivory Coast. 20.8 million tons of cassava, making her fourth largest producer in the world, behind only Nigeria and Thailand. 2.6 million tons of palm oil, making her the eighth largest producer in the world. 713,000 tons of pineapple, making it the 11th largest producer in the world. 753,000 tons of oranges, putting her at the 19th largest producer in the world. Number 5. Kenya. Kenya is a middle-income nation and plans to be a newly industrialized nation in 2030. Kenya is probably the most developed economy in the East and Central African zones. The economy of Kenya is a market-based economy with a few state enterprises, with emerging markets and an average industrialized zones. Kenya has one of the highest agricultural productivity levels in the East African country, with continued rapid growth rate at almost 5% annually, and it has huge potential for further growth. Coffee is one of Kenya's important cash crop, which serves as a major foreign exchange earner and a massive contribution to the economy GDP. However, recent research by the Kenyan Coffee Research Institute reveals that climate change has caused shift in rainfall and temperature regimes, distorting the health and productivity of Kenya's black gold. Nevertheless, a drastic measure has been taken by the Nature Kenya and Rainforest Alliance and UTZ to submerge the foreseen downfall. Rainforest Alliance and UTZ program is a Netherlands-based certification program that is famed for coming up with sustainable farming techniques for coffee, tea, cocoa, and hazelnut farmers around the world. Better still, agriculture, forestry, and fishing are part of its major industries and the second largest contributors to Kenya's GDP. Kenya is proudly the #1 exporter of flour in Africa and third globally. Kenya is also the third largest producer of tea and sisal, and third highest producer on tea and the first largest producer of camel milk worldwide. Number 4 on our list is Morocco. Morocco is among the richest countries in Africa with a massive GDP that's worth $132.73 billion, owing to the richness of Morocco's soil. The economy is dominated by the agricultural sector, which employs nearly 33.2% of the workforce and contributes to 11.7% of GDP. The Kingdom of Morocco is one of the leading producers and suppliers of citrus fruits to Russia and European Union, with an annual production of about 3 million tons. Citrus fruits are the principal exported fruits, 83% shares, while tomatoes are the principal exported vegetables, 65% shares. Morocco is the first producer of olive in African continent and the third largest producer globally, the third largest producer of fig worldwide, and second in Africa, just after Egypt. Morocco exports around 50 types of fruits and vegetables, with orange and watermelon being the popular producer. It also produces a large number of pepper, vines, and argan oil, which have anti-aging qualities. In addition, Morocco has a sizable aquaculture industry because a portion of the maritime population depends on fishing for a living. Among the significant fishing harbors are those at Agadir or Sahel, Jadida and Taleric. Also, Morocco produces barley, wheat and other grains that are grown without irrigation in the raining regions of northeast of the country. Number 3 on our list of the strongest agric economy in Africa is Egypt. The transcontinental country of Egypt is predominantly covered by desert, with about 90% of total land area. Egypt is covered by Sahara Desert. How then did Egypt make up this list of top 10 strongest agric economy in Africa? This was possible through the miraculous yet predictable Nile River and massive construction of dams on the Nile for irrigation that allows all-round cultivation and livestock management. It is also worthy of note that one of the reasons why the ancient Egyptian civilization was so successful was the fact that they were able to farm the fertile soil around the Nile and produce their own food and clothes. Today, Egyptian agri-sector is booming and stands as a model to other African countries. Egypt stands out as Africa's biggest cereal producer and is in the top 5 globally for aquaculture. Egypt is the world's largest producer of dates, the second largest producer of artichoke, and the third largest producer of eggplant. Egypt is the fourth largest producer of buffalo milk and strawberry in the world. Egypt is also the largest producer of fig globally and the fourth and fifth largest producer of onions and tomatoes in the world. The Minister of Planning and Economic Development in Egypt, Hala El Said, stated that wholesale, retail, manufacturing, agriculture, and real estate accounted for 51.9% of the GDP in 2021. Number 2 on the list is Nigeria. Despite the economic woes and intertribal crisis that has befallen the mineral-rich country, Nigeria is still standing tall in economic growth with the highest GDP growth rate in the continent of Africa. Nigeria is not only blessed with rich natural resources but also with a fertile arable land for agriculture and a large number of labor force that has triggered a significant output. Although the agriculture's inability to keep up with the country's rapid population expansion is because most of the farming sector has not been mechanized. It now imports a sizable portion of its food supply to meet its needs. However, efforts have been done to restore the nation's food security. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, alternative industries to the oil industry have flourished in Nigeria. These industries have now merged with the agricultural industry, which is experiencing a boom in what is now known as branded company. Despite this, Nigeria leads Africa in the production of root and tuber crops, accounting for about 40% of the continent's total output. In addition to their great nutritional content, tubers offer a wide range of use. For instance, cassava is a crop that may be used to make a variety of goods, including starch, flour, bioethanol, and other goods that are derived from plants. Nigeria, which was one of the leaders in production of palm oil, continued to export goods worth roughly 1 million to the US, Canada, and UAE since the COVID-19 pandemic. Nigeria's non-oil industries have flourished and incorporated into the country's economy. Nigeria's largest population also makes it a prime location for labor in any agricultural endeavor. Ventures for agro-processing are being created in Nigeria. There are numerous food processing facilities established for products including rice, coconut oil, beef, and dairy. The most funding on the continent has reportedly gone to Nigeria agri-tech startups, and this new industry is flourishing tremendously as a result of the tenacity of the youths in Nigeria. Livestock and forestry production also contributes a significant portion of Nigeria exports. In 2021, Nigeria's agricultural sector maintains the largest sector in the economy, contributing 30% to the real GDP with an estimated value of 18.74 trillion naira. In 2021, Nigeria exports include sesame seeds, cashew nuts, cocoa beans, ginger, frozen shrimp, and cotton. And lastly, the number one on our list of the top 10 strongest agric economy of Africa is South Africa. The economy of South Africa is the highest developed and diversified economy in Africa. A GDP standing at the range of $418 billion. South Africa's agricultural sector is one of the world's most diverse, consisting of corporate and private intensive and extensive crop farming systems, including vegetables, fruits, nuts, and grain production. The well-developed commercial farming sector in South Africa is the backbone to the country's agricultural economy, and South Africa remains the largest grain suppliers in Africa. The International Grains Council (IGC) puts South Africa's total grain production in 2020 to 2021 at 18.6 million tons. According to statistics, the export volume of maize and its products in South Africa was almost 2.8 million metric tons. In the poultry sector as of 2020, South Africa produced more than 1 million tons of beef and about 1.9 million metric tons of poultry, making it the continent's top meat producer. South Africa is a force to reckon with when it comes to meat production worldwide. Also, South Africa is among the top producer of chicory roots, grape, fruit cereals, and maize. It is also a top producer of castor oil seed, pears, sisal, and fiber crops. Foods like eatable fruits and nuts, beverages, pickled foods, tobacco, cereals, wool, sugar, meat, malt, and starch are among South Africa's most significant agricultural exports. South Africa's climate ranges from subtropical to Mediterranean, allowing a multitude of farming opportunities. The country's biodiversity ensures that products such as grains, fruits, and wine are exported and preferred for its exceptional quality. South Africa has a well-developed agricultural sector which will stand the country in good state in the face of continuing uncertainty both economically and in terms of the weather. The agricultural potentials of Africa is underdeveloped with huge untapped potentials lying waste in most of its agri sector. It still lacks adequate funding, introduction of mechanized system of farming for massive output to unfold itself and free Africans from the pains of hunger, poverty, and food insecurity. But this can only be possible through a collaborative work of many more African countries. In regards to the killings of farmers and crop destruction by the Fulani herders, especially in northern Nigeria, should be addressed and controlled. And that brings us to the end of the video. And please tell us how you feel about this video and what you think of agriculture to the economy of Africa in the comment section below.